the last story is kind of following. I saw this today and I thought, why is her shirt glitching? Do you think it looks like her shirt's glitching? Like I look at that shirt and I go,
wow, yes.
It's weird, eh? It's like she's broken into some kind of. It's like you seen that movie Pixels when they all get pixelated, the cartoon movie. So for some reason her shirt's glitching. But talking to Christopher Luxon this morning about the footage that came out about his Nelson meeting yesterday. We have some more footage here, and one of the points that Annabelle and Francis makes is quite interesting, which is about the length of time it took for him to answer these questions. Some might think that's pedantic, but I think it speaks volumes. Let's have a look.
The debate about bilingual signage is heating up in Nelson, whether or not te reo should be used on signs like Kura, as well as the word school, was raised by angry locals during the national leader's latest visit. He was met with a big applause when asked what action he would take.
You've already promised to rescind the Three Waters program. Will you do the same for all the government departments that have changed their names that a lot of us can't understand?
Oh, just the old cretin.
How many people, we all understand school, but I've seen signs changed to Kura. And we just don't understand all this. We're all equal.
You just said you did.
Me too.
He just said
I don't get it. I don't understand. I think about this today, actually. Like, I don't know the names of all the new names of all the organisations, but let's say one of them is to do with the health. Well, let's say it's Waka Kotahi. It's to do with the roading, right? And you know where to go. You've known for 20 years where to go to speak to Transport New Zealand. You know where Transport New Zealand is. And then they change the branding to Waka Kotahi. And what? You then have lost the address. You've lost the phone number. You don't know anymore. Like let's say it's a DHB that's changed its name. I used to know where the hospital was, but now there's a building there called such and such. I don't understand it. Otago University is going through this a little bit at the moment. It's like, you know, there used to be a university with a clock tower, but it's got a different name now, so I'm not entirely sure where I'm supposed to go for my lectures. It's just redonkulous to the extreme.
Locally, we have that here. The new pool out in Mosgiel has a Māori name, and people are like going, well, I don't understand what it means. And it's like, cool, well, it's probably not going to change anything for you, right? You're still going to call it like the Mosgiel pool. You know that it's a pool. You know, he's just said, the signs used to say school, and now they say Kura, and I don't know what that means. And it's like, well, use your context clues, mate. Is it in the same place? Yeah. Is it outside of school?
Is there full of kids there? They're playing in the playground? What are those kids doing? They used to go to school there, but now they're at whatever Kura is. I don't get it. What's going on?
At what age do you stop learning? Like that's my question for everybody in that room. What age do you stop learning?
If you're Caucasian and you live in Nelson, it's about 24. I think that would be the
just so time. Depressing. Nelson, uppercut yourself. Come on.
Here we go. Keep going.
And I got the question. Yep. Thank you, mate.
This is interesting as well. How quickly he cut the question off. Like he's like, okay, stop. Enough words, please. This is being recorded.
And all this. Yeah, we're all equal. And
I got the question. Yep. Thank you, mate.
We want some action.
Yeah, well, mate, well, the first thing you got to do, buddy, is you got to vote October the 14th to get me in there to government. So
let's just make this clear again. We hate mighty words. Then from down the back, someone calling out, obviously with some racial undertones, do something about this. And his response is not, which it should be, look, I fully support, you know, te reo Māori being used. It's part of our brand. It's the only unique thing about this country. Yada, 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 yada. His response is, if you, potential racist down the back of the thing, want to change these things, then the first thing you got to do is make sure I'm voted in. Now, he didn't overtly say I would change them, but the guy's saying, down the back of the class, the guy's saying, we want some action, we want this stuff sorted out. And his response was, the first thing you got to do is vote me in. Now, that is a pretty clear signal to, and not a big jump to go, if you want these things changed, then you must vote me in. Because he said we want change from down the back, and his response was, well, vote me in. Like, that's literally what happened. I'm going to play it again, right? I'll play it again to make sure I'm not misleading anyone.
And school, but I've seen signs change to Kura. And we just don't understand all this. Yeah, we're all equal. And
I got the question. Yep. Thank you, mate.
We want some action.
Yeah, well, mate, well, the first thing you got to do, buddy, is you got to vote October the 14th to get me in there to government. So,
We want some action, so vote me in. Not, we want some action. Yeah, but look, I respect your vote. I respect where your vote's going. But this is not the kind of action that the National Party is going to get involved with. We're not going to get caught up. It's not that. It's like, we want some action for our racist views. Well, you better vote me in. What message does that send to these people? Like, what message does that send? That is an active courting of people with these opinions. Yeah, go, Chewy.
I noticed that Luxon was trying to mischaracterize what was said at him and what he was answering as well.
We'll get into that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what this interview goes into. But I also noticed, and I'll play it for you one more time, as soon as the question from the side there was, we're all equal, that's when Luxon cut it off. Because, you know, some undertones of, you know, these people who think they're better than us, you know, they've got special privileges. That's the edge of we're all equal. And that's when he cuts it off.
A lot of us can't understand. You know, how many people, we all understand school, but I've seen signs change to Kura. I just don't understand all this. Yeah, we're all equal. And
I got the question.
Yeah, see, boom.
Thank you, mate.
We'll stop this
Straight
right
away.
now.
He knew
I know
where
where
it
this is
was
going. I know where this is going. This is going to, they've got special privileges. And so I mean, you know, he read the room correctly then, and he didn't want that to be recorded.
Yeah, well, mate, well, the first thing you got to do, buddy, is you got to vote October the 14th to get me in there to government. So, yeah.
Okay, you're going to say something there, Chew, before we go on?
Oh, this just really
glitching top again. Glitch.
really just confirms my preconception that Nelson is the South Island's Tauranga.
Yeah.
You know it works.
All right, let's keep going.
Doesn't look like a great start to the answer, right? But there is more to it. Mr. Luxon went on to say he has had similar discussions recently.
I was thinking, yeah, well, Waka Kotahi is the transport agency, and Whatu Ora and Tipu Kinga, well, that's actually the health department, and that's also the polytechnics. And so I am of the view that we should rename our government departments in English so that people can navigate their government.
He would have said we should rename them in English. That's what he said, right? So let's be clear on what he said. He said we should rename them in English. Now, he backtracks out a little bit, but this is the first thing to a bunch of people who are wanting to hear this. Listen again.
That we should rename our government departments in English so that people can navigate their government.
Because remember, one's the health department, so there used to be a hospital there. Who knows what it is now? One's the Polytechs, and my kid used to go to Teachers Training College, but my kid turned up to Teachers Training College the other day and it was called something different, so they didn't know what to do. They just came home. You know, What are we supposed to do? And all these 90-year-olds listening to him, are they really concerned about the changing of the name of the Polytechnic that their great-grandchild is going to learn to be a fucking barista? How's that going to impact them? You know?
But I'm also of the view that actually we should have te reo on there, and we can have dual language on it, but you have to have a choice, right? You have to be able to navigate it.
All right, it was applause. Christopher Luxon joins us now. Mr. Luxon, why did it take you so long to answer the question?
I did answer the question, and what I said very clearly was, in that case, I had someone ask
Very
me a
clearly.
question. I had a heckler at the back. I was trying to say, hang on, I'll get to the answer.
I do enjoy the idea of identifying that person as a heckler, Chewy. I mean, you're a stand-up comedian. A heckler, in my mind, is normally someone who disagrees with, who comes from a contrary position, who wants to cause trouble. That was a room of his and probably ex-supporters. But he's clarified him as a heckler. And I just wonder if that term was used on purpose as a way of distancing from the comments. Like, this is not someone from our team. This is a heckler. Whereas I'm like, hang on, now this is someone from your team sharing a view that many in that room agreed with, who are there to hear your thoughts about voting for you. Why are you distancing yourself from this person?
I mean, I would say it is correct to call him a heckler, because the comment certainly wasn't in support. It was like, we're sick of hearing you. We're sick of the talk. We want action. So I think that's accurate to call him a heckler. It definitely wasn't like, go Chris, you rule. Here's my support socks.
Anna Burns-Francis goes on to talk about how long it took him to answer, which is a really interesting point, and I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'll let her get the questions out, and then we'll talk about it.
I'm not actually in government. They think I am in government, but I'm not. And I answered the question to say very clearly that actually I believe that bilingual is fine, but actually what we need is actually be able to have a choice where New Zealanders, if they haven't been raised, are learning some te reo. And just remember, the average age of a Kiwi is 38. Most of us have grown up learning the te reo version of the national anthem. I'm trying to learn te reo because I like the language and love the language, but actually for many others, they don't understand, and as a result, we've just got to give them choice.
But
it's no different.
I've just asked you that question, you've answered it straight away. It took you 94 seconds to say that in response to that man in the audience. You talked about Three Waters, you told him to vote for National, and then you finally got round to actually answering the question.
There were two questions in that meeting.
When you look at the transcript, it wasn't. He said, you've said you'll repeal Three Waters.
Correct.
Will you do the same for signage on buildings? That was his actual question.
Right.
So why didn't you just get straight to it?
But listen to my full answer. Look at the full transcript of what I actually said. And what I said very clearly is, I'm very comfortable with dual language. That's really important. But you just have to be able to give people an option and a choice to be able to navigate their government. And when people literally do not understand whātua ora, tipu kinga or waka kotahi, and they feel embarrassed that they don't know what those services are, we should be able to make sure that they're available in English so they can navigate those public services.
Those people are not embarrassed, though, that they don't know it. They don't like it. He made his point very clear. He doesn't like another language.
And my answer is very clearly, I'm very comfortable with dual language. I think it's important. I lived in a place like Canada where we had English and French. I lived in the US for many years where we had English and Spanish. It's quite okay, but you've got to be able to give a choice so that people can use whatever language they wish, and they need to understand what those services.
There's also this kind of the stupid thing about people have to be able to use whatever language they wish. No one's imposing anyone speaking Māori on them. I mean, unless they never want to go to Rotorua again, for example, do you want to anglicise that to make sure they don't have to ever speak a word of it again? No one's forcing people to use or speak Māori, right? No more at least than if you're going to Te Anau, right? Whoop, Māori word, not going to say that. A place that was called a polytechnic now has a Māori name. A place that was a health care, was a university, now has a Māori name, but the same buildings in the same location for the same services. It is just at the very, if I'm being generous, it's xenophobic. There are other words where it's far worse, but at the very, it's xenophobic, it's controlling, it's looking back, it's make New Zealand great again. It's we're the majority, so any kind of change looks like oppression to us. It's just revolting. And the point that Anna Burns-Francis made here, which I thought was beautiful, and I've talked about this before, is he answers the media quickly and succinctly, and he says yes and no. He's talking to a group of potential voters, and he mealy mouths, and he takes his time, and he works an angle, and he uses 100 words when 20 would do, because he wants to have enough space from their horrific views to still be able to keep them on board for their vote without being able to be accused of agreeing with what they've said. I mean, the way he answered it here to Anna Burns-Francis is what he could have said on the stage, but chose not to.
He's not good on his feet. And
no.
He's talking to a room. He's appeasing that room. Yes. He's not stamping out a vision for, like, if let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he does want to see more te reo and he is comfortable with learning it more. We don't really see any evidence of that from him on his day-to-day, but let's just say that he is. He's not putting forward that vision of New Zealand. It's not aspirational. It's not forward-looking. The key is in the slogan, let's get New Zealand back, on track, backwards, in the past, behind us, where all of our ideas are. It's just so ordinary. I'm just frantically looking around. I saw someone had made a montage of all the logos of these government departments.
Well, why don't you keep doing that?
He's having the point that they're all in te reo only,
right?
And they're not.
Why don't you keep looking for that? And whilst you're doing that, I will play a bit more of this conversation because we do want to get to the end of it.
services are.
Do you think your voters are really on board with that message, though? Because that man clearly is not. And this is a room full of your heartland supporters. These are the people that you need on board. And by taking that long to get around to the answer, it does give the impression you're slightly trying to deflect and water down the seriousness of his comments.
I disagree completely. I've been really consistent on that issue. And when I get asked that question, I answer that straight up. Those sessions we
but
get...
But not straight away. You answered it straight up, but you did not answer it straight away.
Didn't answer it straight up
either. Way around does
because there was a few other dynamics where someone else from the back of the room was asking another question and interjecting, and I was trying to deal with the gentleman up front asking his question. But I think I gave a straight answer. They may not have liked my answer, but the point is I'm giving them a straight answer, and that's the whole point of the...
They may not have liked my answer while they hooped and hollered and clapped when you said I'm going to change their names to English. Yeah, they might have hated that answer. Might have hated it.
Is that anyone can ask any question they wish, and I'll tell them what I think, and it's really important. And so we have good discussions around the economy, around infrastructure, around health, around education. And yes, we get a question like that, and I answer it as straight as I can. Well, that's what I believe, and that's what I think is important.
You've just mentioned that they might not like your answer. Are you worried that those are the sorts of people who might not like your answer and are not going to vote for you? These are supposed to be your loyal and blue supporters.
That is the great thing about a democracy, right, is that people come, they get to hear me and my answers. They may well decide not to vote for the National Party as a consequence of my answers, and that's perfectly reasonable. They're free to vote for whoever they wish to. But what I'm there is opening myself up to a town hall, to a public meeting where anybody can come along and ask any questions that they wish. And
in the middle of the day.
To those.
What if those voters still vote for you, but then they start putting on the pressure after the election that they have this level of expectation that you will fold, that you will start scrapping te reo on public buildings?
It's a silly question because voters are never going to do that to a political party. But anyway,
I'm telling them what my view is. I've lived in North America for 8 years, where, as I said to you, we had English and Spanish in the US, we have English and French in Canada, and it's quite a possible way of doing it. And that's where the conversation we should be having about how do we make sure that if you haven't had an opportunity, and particularly for older people in New Zealand, they actually feel that they don't know what these government departments are. They should be available in English, and they should be clearly so they actually know what those services are. That's not unreasonable. Other countries manage it, and we should be able to do the same.
Are there any cases of buildings or naming conventions where you would accept only a te reo version and not an English version?
No, I think we should have both.
No.
I think it's only fair when we have a country of 5 million people.
Right, get that? No. Right, no. Like, he's talking about not faffing around. No. When asked the question the other way, is it okay to have an English-only building? Remember, Māori only? No. Ask the opposite question, wait for that answer. Just it might seem subtle, but wait.
English is the predominant language. Yes, we want to see more New Zealanders embrace te reo, and it's been fantastic to see that. But you've got to be able to have both.
Does that mean that even if there's an English-only version, that you would be committed to then giving it a te reo name?
Up for that conversation, up for that. But
you've just said no to te reo only. And you're up for a conversation about English.
No, my point is that we need to be able to have dual language, and so that if you...
Then why isn't it yes to Māori? Because if it's just in English, dual language would be having Māori on it as well. But it's no, not just in Māori. And if it was only in English, well, I'm open for that. It shows there's the PR spin and there's the talking to the base.
Have a knowledge of te reo, that's fantastic, and you'll be able to use te reo, brilliant. If you actually don't have a knowledge of te reo, which I think is the vast majority of New Zealanders, it needs to also be in English so that you can navigate your government and you can understand what's going on.
Okay.
So if you need to have a knowledge of te reo to be able to understand te reo names, I have to assume, as silly as this sounds, that every Māori place name in New Zealand, National Party must be going to therefore anglicise it and start to publicise it. So Te Anau, because if you've got a knowledge of te reo and you understand it, that's good. But if you don't, how are you going to know where Te Anau is? Rotorua,
I had this
Taupō.
I had this
what about
very
those?
same argument. I had the same argument with someone online the other day where he was going on about that there needs to be English. And I was like, yeah, but most of these things are place names. And I looked at his account. He's from Temuka, just north of Timaru. And I was like, what's the English name for Temuka? Oh, nothing. He disappeared off the internet.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's always this mealy mouth shit, right? So he mentioned that the majority in New Zealand, what is the average age is 38 or something. I'm over that. Minimal te reo through my schooling, can count to 10, might know some of the colours, that sort of thing. The rest you pick up. I've picked up more te reo in the last 5 or 6 years. You know, when I went through my broadcasting training to pass my Te Reo module, I had to use 5 Māori words in a voice break. So I just named my top 5 trees. You know, it was ridiculous. And now there's been more effort put in. He mentioned the national anthem. I remember when they started doing that. I was at an All Blacks game, one of the first where they had that. I wasn't there to watch the game. I was an extra in a TV ad, before you say. But I remember when they came on and it came to the Māori verse, and the stadium was silent. Nobody said anything. And people grumbled about it. They're like, why do we need to do this? Now it's not questioned. It just is. And that's the thing. If things change, they change incrementally. No one's coming in and going, right, you can only refer to NZTA as waka kotahi or as straight to jail. You can navigate government. It's just, it's such a bullshit argument.
And this whole thing about, he's basically saying it's fine for those people who understand Te Reo, these words are good, fantastic for those people. But for people who don't speak Māori, then they're not going to understand it. It's like, I've said this before, and you know this argument now, Chewy, so I won't ask you again. Nobody knows, well, some do, but very few people know what Patrick means, my birth name, Patrick. You don't know what that means, but you know the context in which to use it, right? I don't actually know what Te Ano means. Don't know what it stands for. I know that Whanganui is Big Bay, but you don't have to know the definitions of words to be able to use them accurately and understand the context in which they're used.
Context closed.
Waka kotahi is NZTA. If you used to go to NZTA and get your whatever you did there, I don't know if you go there for your registration or whatever, now that it's got waka kotahi on the top rather than NZTA, you can still go there. Now that the Polytech here in Otago by the university has got a different name, the classrooms are still in the same places. The lecture theatres are still there. You know, it's not like the 17-year-olds who are going there next year, 18, and then there's a name change, don't know what to go when they're 19. Oh my gosh, we're all confused about this right now. There's just this horseshit, bullshit, donkey shit argument that if they understand Māori, the Māori language, then it's okay for them. I don't understand French. I don't know what the word croissant means in French, but I know what a croissant is. You know, I don't know what the definition of it is. Curly bread, there you go. It's just such a stupid argument that people are buying and using, which is ridiculous.
I didn't know the word, what mahi meant, until I was 25.
Right.
I learned the phrase mā te wā, getting off in a New Zealand flight.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know what...
Probably while he was CEO, maybe. Maybe while he was CEO.
Yeah,
like, honestly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I didn't know what motu meant until the daily COVID briefings. You never stop learning unless you want to. And at that point, you're just being stupid.
Yeah. Or you're ready to die. I mean, honestly, or you're getting ready to go toes up.